I'd like to sort of ask the question, how do we enact environmental justice? And it's a strange question, it's a bit of a loaded question because it does actually presupposes a particular understanding of justice, which I'd like to explore a bit more later. In order to answer the question, I just want to throw out, in good philosophical tradition, three ideas to you. And the three ideas are very simple, basic ideas. And they're very much rooted in the tradition of what we call systems thinking. And the three ideas are this. First of all, everything connects. We can't just focus on this thing called the environment without looking at the consequences on the economy, on society, and particularly on vulnerable groupings and such. And everybody is basically aware of that very basic principle. Everything connects. And it's the sort of thing that generates the complexity that James has been talking about regarding climate change. It's a very complex issue. The second basic idea is that everything changes. We are in a constant situation of change. And associated with that idea is that we are change agents. We are agents of change, every one of us. The third idea that I just want to throw up is it derives from these other two ideas. The third idea is this. It's the fact that we all act on particular models, structures of thinking about things. And those models, we can call them systems if you like, those models are inadequate, ultimately. They're inadequate or they are partial. Let me say that. They are partial in two senses. They're partial in the first sense that they cannot, no model can ever capture the whole complex reality of the mess that we find ourselves in. Can't be done. The other aspect of these models regarding partiality is that they are derived from a particular perspective. And so we have contrasting models. We always will have contrasting models. And the basic idea that I'd like to try and get over here is that we need to learn to live with our contrasting models. Now, each one of those three ideas generates a particular trap of thinking. And these traps of thinking are very much in line with the kind of thing that Lawrence Lohmann talks about with the path dependencies, which Rupert mentioned earlier this morning. They're traps which I'd like to associate with the opposite of virtues, which are vices. So each one of those three ideas is associated with a vice, a trap of, well, first of all, the fact that we cannot encapsulate, none of our models can ever encapsulate what the reality is, can generate a sense of despair. So that's the first vice, if you like. The second vice, the vice that we all will have different conceptions, frameworks of thinking, models, systems, can generate a sense of relativism. And that can, again, spawn a sense of apathy. What can we do about these various things? And the third type of vice, associated with the general idea about our models not being able to be to cope with the complexity of the world, or coping with the multitude of different perspectives that there may be around the complexity of the world is this idea of cynicism. It's very, very deep and prevalent. I don't know how many people here have conversations with people outside of our own general interest, but that notion of cynicism, what can you do? What's the point? Is actually quite embedded. And it strikes me that environmental justice, if we're going to enact environmental justice, we have to confront those kind of vices. And how do we do that? Well, I haven't got any answers for you. But I just wanted to very quickly go through each one of those different vices, if you like, despair, apathy, and cynicism, and to just indicate some of the possible pathways out of that, which I think are worth exploring in 2 minutes. I mean, the first one is with regards to having our capturing the complexity of things, and this notion of kind of despairing about it. Yes, there is a lot of good science going on. Complexity science, chaos theory. There's a lot of very deep econometrics, and the discipline of economics that deals with carbon trading, for example. Some of it's good, some of it's very dicey. But you can get wrapped up into being reduced into focusing on those complex sciences without actually questioning the overall point about those endeavours. And it strikes me that if you want to try and get over your despair, you need to be much more purposeful and to keep on asking the question, what is the purpose behind the science that you are coming up with? These endeavours that you are engaged with, these investments that we continually make or are made on our behalf. What is the purpose? And in asking that question, I think you get more towards a purposeful, what we call purposeful systems, simplicity, which we can then engage with. And I think asking those kind of questions is something that Climate Camp is particularly very well practiced at. The idea about apathy, how do you counter the apathy that there is? I find this quite interesting because within looking at environmental justice as an academic, from an academic institution, you get a sense that the whole discourse around justice can be commandeered, if you like, taken over by academics trying to define what the ideal environmental justice is. And then that gives vent to the idea of people actually trying to express the ideal virtue. And I think that needs to be challenged. It needs to be challenged in a way in which you're actually suggesting, no, it's people on the ground who are developing justice. Justice isn't a thing which we can discover. It's something that is enacted by people on the ground through continual conversation. And then finally, the third thing about the models and the systems and the cynicism about that, let's always remember that the systems that we have, whether they're so-called ecological systems or the economic systems, they are our own produce. They are human systems at the end of the day. When Harry talks about this morning about the capitalist system, it's almost talked about and reified as being something that's out there, godlike, that's imposed upon us. And I think that needs challenging. And we need to remind ourselves continually that the systems that we have are our systems. And so we can change them.